Today is Tuesday, July 12th, and we're taking things one day at a time here on the Outside the Oval podcast, the newest running experience on the internet. And on today's show, I will preview the NCAA Division I Midwest Regional for men and women, while also briefly diving into the women's United States distance team that they're sending to Eugene for the 2022 World Championship Games. In addition to that, two-time Ohio State champion and former Ohio State Buckeye, Aziza Ayoub, joins the show to discuss her transition to the 800 meters in high school, her recruiting process, and preparation and plans for the 2024 Olympics representing Puerto Rico. All that and a whole lot more on Outside the Oval today, but wow, do we have one amazing show for you in store today, and I will not keep you waiting. Let's jump right into it and preview the women's United States distance team for the World Championship Games. First, let's start with the 800. Team Moo, Reving Rogers, and Aji Wilson. They will be representing the United States in Eugene. Being the defending champion, Moo certainly has some pressure to defend her title, but it was very positive to see her rising to the occasion when challenged by Aji Wilson at the United States Championships. That's obviously a great positive for the United States heading into the World Games. I think it gives Moo a very good chance of defending her title. Wilson looked smooth late and is certainly capable of knocking off Moo if we saw anything from the United States Championship Games. It'll be interesting to see how she races on the world stage. Will she be conservative or will she go out with the leaders? Really, it's going to be a coin flip, and I think regardless, we have a chance to see 2 to 3 women on the podium for the 800 women. Rogers came roaring down the home stretch from 6th to take 3rd and qualify. The United States, like I mentioned, all 3 could be in the mix to make the final, maybe even podium. Christy Schofield's another one I'd like to talk about. She finished 8th at the United States Championships, but she's definitely going to be in the mix in 2023. Very strong runner, wire to wire. Haven't seen an 800 girl run that strong in a long time. Very excited to see how her career progresses at Boise State. In the 1500, Sinclair Johnson, Corey McGee, and Ellie St. Pierre qualified to the World Championship Games. Johnson really left no doubt, though, as to who is the most talented 1,500-meter runner in the United States. Behind the 2 staggering favorites in the race, Johnson is definitely going to paint herself as a potential medalist and really a threat to maybe knock off one of the top 2 if they have a bad day, if the race goes out slow. Really would not be surprised to see Johnson have a very good, strong race at the World Championships. Although St. Pierre was decisively beaten by Johnson and McGee, the World Championships have historically been a fast race, and she's historically likes to work the race early. She's more natural in a quick-paced field, whereas it seemed like she wanted someone else to take the pace in the United States Championships. So it's going to be interesting to see how she races at the World Championships. Really looking forward to that. And moving on to 3K steeple, Emma Coburn wins another championship, winning her 10th total at the United States Games. She's undefeated at the United States Championship, by the way, and has won 8 straight. Courtney Farich finished 3rd, and Courtney Wayment, who set the race out on fire, finished 2nd. Like I mentioned, set the pace out hot, made the race hers to lose, and made sure she was going to qualify to Eugene. Definitely, decisively getting in there with a 2nd place finish. Farich was spiked early in the race, but still battled to a decisive 3rd place finish, like I mentioned. And the United States was sending a strong group of 3 runners to the World Championships, and the first time in a while. Very excited to see how Courtney Wayman adjusts to the World Championship stage after an NCAA championship this year at Eugene. But Emma Coburn has got to be the favorite in that event to not only lead the Americans, but win the entire event. In the 5K, Elise Craney, Emily Enfield, and Carissa Schweitzer will represent the United States. And it's really crazy that Elise Craney was able to bounce back from what she described as a poor training block and win the 5,000. She decided not to run the 10K in order to do her best in the 5K, and it really paid off. And now she's going to be representing the United States in Eugene, so that's very exciting. And the trio of former teammates will have the chance to compete amongst the top runners in the nation in one of the most stacked events in the field for distance women. In the 10K, Alicia Monson, Natasha Rogers, and Carissa Schweitzer once again will represent the United States. Schweitzer picked up the win at the United States Championships, edging out Monson, who was also a part of the 2021 Olympic team. Rogers, a former Texas A&M standout, makes her first appearance at the global stage, so that's something to watch, especially as the United States women are looking for that next 10K women to really step up and challenge Schweitzer. As I previously mentioned, Schweitzer competed at the Olympics last year, finishing 12th, and she would appear to be the best chance for the Americans to medal in this event. Very excited to see how Schweitzer does after a very strong training block coming off injury. And lastly, in the marathon, Emma Bates, Kira D'Amato, and Sarah Hall represent the United States. The marathon course is a 3-loop course that runs through Eugene, Oregon, Oregon University, and Springfield, and it really encapsulates everything Tracktown USA is about. It really encapsulates Oregon's love for running and even runs alongside Pre's Trail. Molly Seidel suffered a stress reaction in her sacrum, which will cause her to miss this race, which is why D'Amato will sub in for her after only 3 weeks of training. However, it's going to be encouraging to see her bring fresh legs to this trio, and it's really going to be exciting to see who wins this most unpredictable distance race, especially at the world stage. Let's dive right into the Midwest Cross Country Regional, though. That's really what I'm excited to talk to you guys about today. On the women's side, Minnesota came away with the win in 2021. While their top 3 finished 4th, 5th, and 6th, they're all going to be departing this year. So Minnesota, the Golden Gophers, are going to be looking to someone else to really step up and take the reins of this team. But they returned multiple sub-21 36K runners who could contribute and give the Golden Gophers a chance to defend their regional championship in 2022. Oklahoma State has got to be the favorite, especially coming into this season, though. Leading off with Taylor Rowe, the indoor 3K champion and 5th last year at Nationals in cross country. Alongside her, Gabby Henneman finished 6th in the 10K on the track. And she really has a lot of room to grow after her 61st finish at Nationals last year in cross country. She's really going to be the key to this team, and I believe she's going to be the key to taking this team from runner-up status in 2021 and delivering them that Midwest Regional Championship this year. Iowa State finished 3rd last year and will replenished just about everyone, despite losing their top 2. The Cyclones are a young team and will be looking to make a name for themselves. But they're more than capable of being able to knock off Oklahoma State. There's a lot of youth on this team, but watch out for Dana Fayen this season, who finished first in the Big 12 5K and 2nd in the 10K to be a major player for the Cyclones. I expect the Cyclones to be very competitive after racing Oklahoma State, I'm sure, multiple times before leading up to this race. Northwestern and Tulsa are 2 other teams to watch. The Wildcats returned the 3rd place finisher, Rachel McCardle, and multiple other key pieces to their 4th place finish last year. However, the team I'm looking at outside the top 4 is Tulsa, who returned 6 of their top 7, including an incredibly deep recruiting class, picking up some of the most talented runners in Texas and Arkansas. I believe Tulsa is the ultimate sleeper in this regional, especially on the girls' side, to make it to nationals and even compete for that 3rd place finish in the regional. Top individuals to watch, obviously Taylor Rowe and Gabby Henneman, as I mentioned, have got to be the 2 I'm focusing on in this region. Henneman's coming off an impressive outdoor season, probably the key to this Cowboy team, and really making a powerful 1-2 punch with Rowe, making this team extremely dangerous in the postseason. I believe she's a sleeper to win the regional and potential candidate to go top 10 at the national championships. Very high on Gabby Henneman. I'm sure Taylor Rowe will be right there with her. Next, Rachel McCarter, mentioned her earlier. She finished 3rd at this meet in 2021, and I'm sure she'll be right there with the leaders this year. Next, Olivia Howe from Illinois is kind of a name you probably wouldn't expect, especially on the cross-country side of things. However, she's coming off an extremely successful track season. She brings in a lot of 1,500-meter endurance, but she's going to be able to stretch that. Illinois has proved they're able to do that in the past, and I'm sure she's going to be a factor in the regional race, especially considering how they run regional races at the Midwest Regional. I think Howell is actually on a short list of runners who could sneak into the top 5 and qualify to Stillwater behind those Oklahoma State girls. And then lastly, I mentioned Dana Fayen from Iowa State. Awfully impressive track season, coming up just short of nationals. After a 14th place finish last year, she is the 7th fastest returner and will definitely be a threat to win up there with Rowe, Henneman, and Howe. Some of the other sleepers I like in this regional on the girls' side, Nicola Jansen from Bradley is without a doubt a sleeper to steal a spot to nationals this year, finishing 27th at the West preliminary round in the 5,000. The sophomore even finished 16th last year at this race and could easily sneak her way up the field and qualify to her first national championship meet. And then another dark horse I'm really looking at is Sivan Auerbach from Oklahoma State. Although I don't think she has the legs to knock off Taylor Rowe or be a first-team All-American like Henneman, Auerbach has everything to like about her. Just 2 cross-country races last year, including a 20th place finish at the Big 12 meet and a 21:09 at Nuttycombe. So that's a very deep field with a lot of very talented runners. She has the experience to knock some very good runners off, and I wouldn't be surprised to see her qualify individually as well. Like I mentioned, a lot of room to grow, and she dedicates herself to the sport and run a full season. Oklahoma State's going to be in very good shape, which is why I'm picking them to dominate the Midwest Regional this season. Finishing first and second will be Taylor Rowe and Gabby Henneman. And right behind Oklahoma State, I'm taking Iowa State to make it out to Stillwater in second pretty comfortably. And I'd imagine Rachel McCardle from Northwestern, Olivia Howe from Illinois, and Nicola Jansen from Bradley to secure 3 of the remaining 5 spots to qualify to nationals. On the men's side, Oklahoma State won in 2021, but finished 3rd at nationals to the Midwest Regional runner-up Iowa State. Tulsa would end up finishing 3rd at the regional and finishing 6th at nationals. And Minnesota rounded out the top 4 at the regional meet, qualifying to nationals as well. Oklahoma State has got to be the favorite, like their women's team on the men's side in the Midwest Regional. The Pokes are led by Alex Mayer, who finished runner-up in the 10K this outdoor season, and also returned Victor Shitsama and Shea Foster, 2 other top 10 finishers last year at this regional meet. The Cowboys are arguably one of the best teams in the NCAA and will be a legitimate title threat come November to win the national championship. They're definitely one of the top 3 teams and on my short list of teams who can actually knock off NAU if that were to happen. Tulsa is another team you got to watch. I think they have a lot of things going well after 3 consecutive top 6 finishes at the national meet. Tulsa is clipping on the heels of some great things. Scott Beatty returns after a 3rd place finish last year at this meet. And if I had to narrow it down to one runner, Isaac Akers has got to be the key factor, the X factor for this team. And he's going to play a big role for the Golden Hurricanes if they're going to want to knock off Oklahoma State at the Midwest Regional. I like Tulsa to finish 2nd, though, like I mentioned, behind Oklahoma State. I expect them to knock off Iowa State at the regional meet, and I think they're going to have a sneaky good chance to finish top 5 at the national meet, as they do return a lot of very good runners from last year's team. As I mentioned, Iowa State loses a lot. They lost Wesley Kipp to the pro ranks, now running for Hoka, and Thomas Pollard, who was instrumental to their success in 2021. But the Cyclones will still have enough depth to battle for an at-large bid. Wouldn't be surprised to see them in Stillwater. And one runner on that team I'm looking at, Chad Johnson, fellow Ohio native, enters the senior season and will play a big role in getting his team to the national meet. Johnson has all the tools to be one of the best runners in the nation, and I think he's going to be one of those runners you've got to watch to take that next step in terms of becoming a first-team All-American. Other individuals I'm going to look at, of course, we're losing Kip to losing Adam Fogg as well, who also went pro. Jonathan Davis from Illinois is electing not to return for his 7th year of school, despite still having eligibility for cross-country and indoor track, which is quite surprising. But it really leaves the door wide open for some new faces in this regional. Like I mentioned, Alex Mayer and Scott Beatty have got to be the 2 favorites in this regional. Mayer's coming off a 2nd place finish in the 10K this spring, and he's going to be looking to redeem himself after a 147th place finish in 2021. Scott Beatty finished 3rd in this meet last year, like I mentioned, and is a legitimate threat to score inside the top 20 at nationals. Like his teammate Michael Power, also from Tulsa, who's also a key factor for this team. I think both of these 2 guys have capability to become household names in the NCAA distance division in 2022. Like I mentioned, Michael Power is a name to watch. He finished 6th in the 5K this year on the track in the 5,000 meters, and he has set 4 personal bests since running at the National Cross Country meet last November. So he's on fire. He's a hot runner with one of the more strong summers that we expect from those Tulsa lads. I expect him to compete for one of the top spots at this Midwest meet. Right beside him from Oklahoma State. And I promise I'm not just running down the Oklahoma State and Tulsa rosters, but these 2 teams are the bona fide best 2 teams in this regional. Isaiah Rodriguez has got to be a name to watch. No one in this regional is more experienced than Isaiah Rodriguez. There are a lot of interesting stories here, but Rodriguez is definitely the one to watch. He finished 22nd at Nationals last year after only finishing 16th at the Midwest Regional. So he turns it on when it's needed. Do they necessarily need it at the Midwest Regional? No, but he's still a name to watch as we know what he is capable of. Lastly, Mitchell Small. He's from Missouri. He's coming off the 24th finish in 2021. He could very well secure a bid to the national meet if Oklahoma State and Tulsa run the regional like I expect them to. Small posted an impressive season, is certainly a threat to be a bid stealer in the fall, having gone 14.05 on the track in a very limited track season, running very few races. A lot of potential for Small, very excited to see how his season goes. In terms of sleeper, I'm looking at Ryan Shoppy, who might not be the biggest sleeper, as he is a fairly well-known name now, having run the 1,500-meter finals on the track this spring. But however, Shoppy was an elite cross-country runner back in the day in high school. He ran for La Porta in Texas and has everything in place to really become a star in Stillwater. He has gone 13:43 in the 5K, 23:36 in the 8K, and not only that, he has plenty of speed. So you mix that endurance with the speed, we have a lot of things going towards Shoppy. I really like the summer he's putting together. My dark horse pick, Matthew Wilkinson from Minnesota. Coming off a 25th finish last year, Wilkinson could be the most drastic and important improvement this season in the Midwest Regional. He finished 8th in the steeplechase final this year, running 13:35 5K at Brian Clay, and is also a D3 national champion in the 5K this year before. So he's dropped over 20 seconds since then. Matthew Wilkinson is a name to watch. He could be the runner no one's talking about as well. He's running low and under the radar, and I would not be surprised if he were to qualify for the national meet after placing inside the top 5 at the Big Ten Championship meet. That is a bold prediction coming from me. My pick going into the Midwest Regional has got to be Oklahoma State and Tulsa making it out to Stillwater. I expect them to finish 1 and 2. Scott Beatty, I want to pick him to win. However, I would not be surprised to see his teammate Michael Power or one of the Oklahoma State guys, Alex Mayer, Isaiah Rodriguez, Ryan Shoppy, Shea Foster, even Victor Shitsama to win that race. I expect them to round out the top 7. I think it's going to be a hotly contested race between Oklahoma State and Tulsa, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of pack running. And I still think that means finishing inside the top 12 will get you to Stillwater. So I'm very excited to see how this regional turns out. But with all that being said, I'm very much looking forward to hearing having you hear my conversation with Aziza Ayoub, who I mentioned earlier, ran for the Ohio State University, and she provides terrific insight on what it is like to be a Division I athlete. There's really no one else who could tell you a better story. Aziza went through it all. This sport has its highs and it has its very lows. But Aziza, who I mentioned, is an incredibly tenacious individual. She puts it in terrific perspective and proudly speaks on her career at Ohio State. Joining us on the Outside the Oval podcast is a former Ohio State Buckeye and my former high school teammate, Aziza Ayoub, who's coming off an incredible and exciting 5-year track career in Columbus. Aziza, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, really looking forward to hearing some new stories, maybe hearing some things that always excite me when you tell the story. But first, let's go back real quick. Extremely talented runner early in your career, running primarily the 100 and 400. That's at least what I remember you running the most in your freshman and sophomore year. And you found a lot of success, but ultimately coming up just short at the state level in both your sophomore year. Then, of course, Coach Krebs comes in. He's named the new head coach of the track program, and he saw something in you didn't even see in yourself. He saw a motivated individual with a little direction. So from there, he ended up recommending the 800 meters. Break me down that story and what led you to becoming the elite 800 runner you are today.
Yeah, so this is like so long ago, and I feel like lots of people ask me about this. But yeah, like you said, my first couple years of high school, my main event was the 400, but for some reason I just never really ran the 2 very often. So I just liked the 100, but my main focus was the 4. And my freshman year, I ended up making it to the state meet in the 4, but I didn't even make finals. So just me being a really competitive person, that upset me a lot. So, I just wanted to get another try at it, work hard in the off season, and then, keep going my sophomore year. Sophomore year, I ran the 4 again at the state meet, but this time I got 5th place. And again, I was not very happy with that. And just like for some, I guess, background context, at the time, Alder did not have like a great track and field program whatsoever. So in my opinion, basically what I was able to accomplish my first 2 years was just kind of off of like natural ability, natural talent. So my freshman year, I ran like 58 some change. And then my sophomore year, I got down to like 56 mid, I think. I don't remember exactly, but something like that. I always had the goal of running Division I track and field. So I knew that track being a spring sport, kind of like your junior year, is what really matters because you will sign the fall of your senior year. So whatever you do your senior year, that's not going to be really taken into consideration when you're getting recruited. So at this point, I was feeling a lot of pressure, and I was actually thinking about leaving open enrolling at a completely different school just because of athletic reasons, pretty much, because I'm like, man, like I'm not going to get it at Alder. These coaches, like, they don't know what they're doing. I don't have like teammates that are like pushing me at practice at all. I feel like I'm just out here doing it, all alone by myself. And I want to be good. Like I want to win a state championship, and I don't think that can happen here. So I was like strongly considering transferring to Hilliard-Davidson, which is where I had cousins going to that high school. So I figured, okay, and they have a good track and field program. And then, yeah, like you said, Krebs came along, and I wish I could remember more details, but this is like so long ago. So basically I told him like, look, well, okay, I'm so bad at telling stories. Sorry. Let me rewind. Okay. The first time I met Krebs, he was, I think like a volunteer coach for the junior high. He was just like kind of doing it because he liked running pretty much. And I met him at some random practice, and he like tried to race me, and I was like, okay, I'm literally like 15. This is weird. But he tried to like race me at practice, and then he beat me, and I was like, I'm a kid. But that's kind of how we met. And then, we just kept talking, here and there. And I think it was after my sophomore year state meet, after I got 5th, I was like, look, I can't do this anymore. I'm probably going to leave. And then again, I forget like some details, but I heard that the coaching job for the high school track team was going to be open. So I was like, look, like, I'm just letting you know, like, maybe you can apply for this. And, he ended up like getting it and then telling me like, okay, if you stay, like, I will help you do this. I will get you to, that state championship. Like, we can do it if you stay, blah, 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 blah. So ended up staying. And so going into my junior year, I was like set 100%. I'm running the 400. I was like, no, I'm not going to switch events because, I want to win at this. Like, I want to beat the people that I haven't been able to beat yet. Like, I want to just, I guess, conquer this challenge. And so we went back and forth. But my junior year, during the regular season, that was kind of my first time trying the 800. And it was tough to see like where I was really at, because I would always double in the 4 and 8. And in high school, the event order is like 400, 300 hurdles, 800. So I was always running it like really tired with like a 10-minute break, basically. So, yeah, it was a big argument like the whole year. And then finally at the district meet, which is like, the beginning of postseason when you really have to choose what event you're going to do. I was like, okay, fine. I trust you, whatever. And then I think I ran like 2:13 my junior at the district meet. And then that was like my first time running it fresh. So yeah, I just ended up taking like that leap of faith, I guess, because I trusted Krebs, and here I am now.
Yeah, one of the greatest parts about Coach Krebs, he's just an incredible motivator, really able to sell kids on an idea. and it's really easy to run for him, so easy to trust him as well. So obviously you made the transition to the 800. You won your first 2 state championships that junior year, and you dominated just about everyone you ran against in that event as well. What was the recruiting process like? And aside from Ohio State, who were some other teams who really played a factor in your recruitment?
So the recruiting process for me, at first, it was really cool. I was like super excited that, I was getting like attention and all these things. The very first school that I can remember reaching out to me at the state meet itself was Kentucky. And I remember his name is Haken, Coach Haken at UK. Yeah, he came up to me. And this is, again, my junior year. I ran like 2:09 at the state meet, and I won by like 2 or 3 seconds. It was like not very close. But he just handed me his card and goes, "I would like to talk sometime." And I was like, "Oh my God, like this is so cool." So yeah, that was like the first school that I remember reaching out to me. But I got recruited by actually your coach that used to be at Pitt. He reached out to me as well.
Yep, I remember him telling me that story.
Yeah.
He was 12 o'clock on the first day. He could be there. He was in your couch talking
Yeah,
to you and
he
your
came
parents.
over.
So,
and I didn't
that's pretty cool.
know that was like a real thing that happened, because like I just remember like the movie The Blind Side, and all these like coaches are sitting in the living room like, oh, this is really happening to me. Like people come to athletes' houses to like recruit them. So yeah, I guess Pitt was another one. I think Wake Forest, the coach that's at Princeton now, he was at Wake Forest. So I remember him recruiting me. I can't even remember all of them. I remember I visited Stanford. I remember, Iowa, duh, that was a huge one. I almost went to Iowa, and thank God I didn't.
Mm-hmm. I do remember that.
Yeah,
too.
thank God I did not go to freaking Iowa. Oh my God. And if anyone is listening to this that's from Iowa, like no offense, but like, thank God. Yeah, and actually Ohio State did not even begin to recruit me until like way later. It was after, so like that year, my junior year, I did Junior Olympics over the summer, and I ran the 8 and the 4, and I ended up with a big PR in the 4 as well. I ran like 54. And after I ran that is when Ohio State called me. So it was that, my 54 plus my 209, and then they finally called me. And it was Coach Joel, who's our hurdles and short sprints coach, which, why, But like, he's the one that gave me the call, and he was the one that really recruited me. And then he ended up coming to my house as well. He actually did 2 home visits for me.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I swore I was not going to go to Ohio State, but, that happened.
Yeah, I do remember you coming to track practice one day, and you were like, all right, guys, I need help. Obviously, I'm making a decision for myself. Where should I go? Ohio State, Iowa, or Kentucky? And being the SEC nut I was at the time, I was like, oh, you got to go to Kentucky. And I think that's around when Sydney McLaughlin was there, too. So that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
But obviously made the right decision, staying home. Pretty cool. You got to run for the team you grew up cheering for. And really great experience, great time at Ohio State. But we move forward. You go to Ohio State. You find success and qualify to first rounds your freshman year. Then your sophomore year, you do it again while also being a part of the 4x8 championship at the Florida Relays, and then finishing second at the Big Ten meet that year as well. So you built pretty quickly. You built a pretty good resume, and you came back in 2020, ran a 2:05.8 in indoor 800, qualified to Albuquerque for the national championships just before COVID hits, unfortunately. You don't get to race in your first national championship race, unfortunately. But take me through that. What was that like for you, and what did you feel when you ended up qualifying for that race?
Yeah, so I don't know. Okay, there's a lot going on there. So let me just like back up to the first thing. Yeah, first of all, I got really lucky because when I chose to go to Ohio State, I had no idea who my coach was going to be, because even though Coach Joe recruited me, obviously I'm not like a short sprinter or a hurdler. And so really hit the jackpot finding out that Katie was my coach. And I think that he had a lot to do with, all the stuff that you mentioned. So yeah, my freshman year, I ended up getting down to 206, and that I ran that actually at regionals. I ran like 207 to get to regionals, and then I ran 206 my freshman year, and then made to the second round of regionals, and I finished like 19th or something. And then, yeah, like you said, my sophomore year, I don't even remember what I ran indoor. I think 206 something indoor, and then 205 outdoor. But yeah, the race that you mentioned at Big Tens, getting second, that is like to date my favorite race probably that I've ever ran, even though I didn't win, because like at the moment, you know, I was going from someone who really didn't do anything to getting second place in one of the biggest, most competitive conferences in my event in the country. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, wow, like I didn't know if I expected that from myself, because, you know, my freshman year indoor, I think I finished 7th in the 800 at Big Tens. But indoor at Big Tens is a little, I would say, easier at conference, just because, you know, you get the split of the 600 and the 800. So the events are not as stacked. Outdoor, obviously, you get everybody that's coming back to the 800. So, you know, it's tougher. So outdoor my freshman year, I was actually the first one out of the final. So being the first one out of the final, like not even getting to run in the final or score, and then the next year coming back and getting second, and I wasn't even ranked to make the final, that was huge. And I remember that race, like I was so nervous. It was so cold. It was in Iowa. It was like 40 degrees. It was raining. It was windy. It was terrible. And yeah, that ended up being my PR for like a couple years. I ran like 205.3. And I remember I was so nervous before the race, and, you know, Katie, love him. I like went up to him. I always look for him before races, and, you know, sometimes he tries to run away from me and hide from me, but I find him most of the time. And I was like, look, I'm so nervous. Like, I'm scared. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm so nervous. And he was like, look, if you just make it to 700 meters, like my bet is on you. As long as you make it to 700 meters, like you're tougher than all these girls, like blah, 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 blah. So I was like, okay, let me just do that. And I got perfect position that race. I was like sitting in second place behind Kelsey Harris from IU. And then, you know, I think that year there was like 5 All-Americans in the race. Like it was stacked. And then people started moving. I was in 4th place at one part of the race. And then with like 80 meters left, I just started, you know, to go into my last gear, and I was closing on Danae, but you know, she's tough. So yeah, I was really happy with that. And then yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, and like you said, it was a very good race. I remember everyone being very excited for you back home. Ended up going to indoor nationals after that. How was that experience, even though you didn't get to compete?
Yeah, that is just so heartbreaking. So actually, before that, just again to like give some context. So after my sophomore year finishing second, like I was on a high, right? And then we go to regionals, and I finished 13th by like 0.03 seconds. I remember this. I remember how much I missed it by, and I was like not okay in any, like at all. I was like so depressed for like 6 months after that. Was ridiculous. So like going into my junior year, I was like, I have no choice. Like I have to make it. I have to make it, which, you know, in hindsight, that was a terrible thing to do because it puts way too much pressure on you. And yeah, I got in with a really slow time. 205.8 got me in, and I was like 15. And I would have qualified with a way faster time if I was not carrying that like emotional baggage with me all season, but you know, ended up getting in anyway, thank God. Yeah, and then we go to New Mexico, and I will always have a thing against New Mexico for this, but it was like the day before I was supposed to race, we were doing a shakeout at the track. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but their track is not like a legit track. They just like build it from like random pieces and like put it together for the meet. So it's just like different parts just like put together. And I was doing an acceleration on like the infield where it's flat, you know, where they run the 60. And as I was slowing down, I had to come up on the curve and like at the top of the bank. into those like padded walls that they put up. And my left foot, my heel landed on the edge of the track. The rest of my foot landed like in this gap that they have between the padded wall and the outside of lane 8. And I just heard this huge like crunch, crack noise. It hurt so bad. It was like immediate pain. It immediately like blew up. It was so like fat and swollen. It hurt to walk. It hurt to do anything. And I was like, oh shit, like, what am I going to do? And, yeah, I planned on running, but then the whole friggin' meet got canceled. Conferences just started pulling out. First it was the Ivy League, then it was the ACC. And I was like, we better not be pulling out of this meet. This is my first national championship. I will not be going home. Like, we're all already here. Just let us run. I don't even care what's going on with my foot. I can make it a race or two. And at that point, like, the form that I was in, I was probably like in 203 shape. So I was really wanting to run. And yeah, then we just got the call like, hey, we're packing it up. We're going back home. And I was so devastated. I was hurt. I was sad. And honestly, like the worst part of it, you know, besides the competition itself, was one of my best friends on the team and my best training partner, Annie Eubank, she was a senior that year. So, like, that's it. That was the last time. I didn't even know the last time we ran together was going to be the last time that we ran together. And that, like, just tore me up because, yeah, I was a lot closer with some of the, like, the older girls on the team. And that was really my last year with them. So I was super sad.
Yeah, that was very frustrating, very upsetting, and obviously very sad to have gone through that experience. And you mentioned the injury that you unfortunately occurred at the national championship of all places. That kind of set you back for a little bit. Of course, you come back after 8 months of not running, and then come back and compete at the Big Ten indoor meet. End up scoring some points, but knowing you, that's not what you wanted. You didn't get exactly to where you wanted to be that season. What was that journey back to the sport like after such a devastating injury?
Yeah, that was really tough because I've been super lucky in my career to not really have super bad injuries like that. That was kind of my first one that was like really bad. So just to explain the injury a little bit, I had a lot of stuff going on. So I broke my navicular bone. And then I was born with an extra bone. It's called like the os navicular or accessory navicular. And when I landed with my foot like inverted, how I did, that just got like super unstable. So it was kind of like moving around a lot, and it was irritating all the surrounding tissue. Like my tendon got super inflamed because that bone was just moving around too much. So I talked to like a couple people that had a similar injury to be like, okay, what should I do? Do I need to get surgery? Should I wait? And obviously surgery is scary. Like you don't want to be out for longer than you have to. So I kind of took the risk of waiting and not getting it right away. And actually at first, nobody even told me that I had broken my bone until like the third doctor I saw. So I was still trying to run on this thing. And every time I'd run on it, I was out for like the next week because my foot got so swollen and so red and I just could not walk at all. And so, yeah, after like a month or two of like waiting to see if it would get better and it didn't, I was like, okay, I guess I'll just have to get surgery. And what they did was they took out my extra bone. They had to reattach one of my tendons to a different spot. And it was just a mess. And then on top of that, I had to wait for my bone that broke to heal. And I was super low on vitamin D. So it I guess, extended the recovery process. They told me that I would be, good to go in like 3 months because, I'm young. I'm a little bit lighter than some of, their other patients where they would be putting a lot of pressure and weight on the foot. Like, I'm active, I'm healthy, all this stuff. This took me 8 months. And I've never been out that long ever. And it was really tough because, I remember coming back in the fall trying to run. It didn't go well. Like my foot was still in so much pain. So I had to take more months off. And then I was trying my best to, get fit and work out, but with my foot just like getting so swollen to the point where I couldn't even walk, I would really only be able to like run one day and then be out for like the next week. Or 2 weeks. So really I didn't start doing workouts until December, the middle of December. And our first meet is like the first week of January. So I had like 2.5 weeks really to like get ready for the first meet. And even at this point, I was only running on workout days. I didn't do any easy runs because I was like, okay, if this is going to bother my foot, I'd rather just like, get the work instead of like the easy days, and I'll just cross train on the easy days. But cross training, 3 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week instead of, running, that really adds up. And yeah, it does make a difference. So I was running so bad. Like times that I did not even run my freshman year. Like we're talking high school times. Like I remember my first meet, I ran like 2:11 and it really didn't get much better from there. I was running like 2:11, 2:12, 2:10. It was so embarrassing and just, oh my God, it was so bad. I've never like ran that slow in college in my career. And yeah, I don't know why they did this to me, okay? But at Big Tens, they really tried to kill me. They put me in the 800, the 600, the 4x4, all these races. I'm like, y'all, I can't do it. But I was like on my deathbed, okay? But yeah, I ended up pulling something out of me. I ran like 2:08, got myself to that final in the 800. I ran like 1:30 in the 600, got myself to the final in that, and then anchored our 4x4. And I was happy to at least help my team where I could. And it also just made it better that we were getting that season back regardless. So it wasn't like I was wasting eligibility when I was running terrible, So I was like, fine, I'll just do it for the team. I'll help the team. Put me in whatever you want. I'm dying, but it's fine.
Right. It was really nice to get that indoor season back, being able to compete, even though you weren't sacrificing a year when you didn't really want to sacrifice that year coming off that injury. Very nice. Having trained with you before, you're an incredibly resilient individual, so there's no surprise you came back from an extremely devastating injury. During your final season, you nearly captured a Big Ten championship, falling just 0.16 seconds short, and then barely missed out on nationals in the spring. Knowing you, this was not the college career you might have wanted, but what can you take away from your career at Ohio State?
Yeah, I think that, really looking back, I didn't really accomplish anything that I wanted to. I when I was in high school, I always kind of thought that I would have been a lot better than I ended up being. So that's kind of sad on one hand, but looking at everything that I had to overcome, I think that injury was a huge thing because really that did a lot to my confidence as well. And on top of the injury, I forgot to mention a huge other thing. That same year, I was basically battling an undiagnosed autoimmune disorder that whole season, basically, and I lost a ton of weight. I couldn't, everything was hard. It zapped my energy levels. And so that year, I guess, I was questioning, oh my gosh, am I as good as I used to be? Am I getting worse? I'm not running fast anymore, all this stuff. But, looking back, I think that was a good lesson. And it kind of showed myself how resilient I can be. So I think that's one big takeaway from my college experience. And, as someone who didn't get a lot of the accolades or accomplishments, I'm not, a national champion. I'm not a Big Ten champion. I'm not, an All-American. Technically, I guess you can say it, but not really because I didn't run the only time I made it. I think though that kind of forces you to find value in other things instead of only the outcomes of your goals. I think that there's also a lot of value in the pursuit of goals. And there's just so much that you can take from that as well. And, I used to struggle with this a lot. Like I said, after missing nationals my sophomore year by that .03 and like being super depressed, like to like an unhealthy level, like truthfully, another thing that I can now take away, like I no longer identify so much with, you know, track and field as my sole identity. Like I'm not just an athlete. I'm not just a runner. Like that's not who I am. It's not my whole life. So I think that that's something really important because most of the time we don't get what we want, you know, in sports. So if it's not going well, like, what are you going to do? You have to realize that you're more than that. And, you know, I think this year too, you know, not really accomplishing what I wanted to, you know, Katie really helped me with this a lot. Like, I'm always going to be Aziza and I'm always going to be me. And that's why I'm like good, I guess. Like, it's not anything other than like, I'm just me. And yeah, I think I have found value in other things besides, you know, just winning all the time, because I really didn't win very much. And, you know, I just really value the relationships, especially. Like I said, Annie was like my soulmate of a training partner. Love her so much, and still one of my best friends. Same with Julia Rizk, who, if you don't know who that is, she won the NCAA mile in like 2019, I think it was. And yeah, just my relationship with my coach as well. Like, that's not anything I would trade for like anything in the whole world, basically. Like, some people only get the accolades and the accomplishments and all of that, and they don't get the people. And I got the people, and I think that, you know, that's better. So I'm super grateful for everyone that this sport has brought me, and I think that's like the greatest gift I could have gotten out of this whole experience.
Right. And when I started this podcast outside the Oval, I wanted to highlight those experiences. So for you to be able to openly say, hey, I didn't accomplish everything I wanted to accomplish, but I also met some really cool people, and I can draw a lot more positives than negatives.
Yeah.
That's really cool to hear. And to elaborate on that, very close with your coach, Coach Robinson, or Coach KD, as you've mentioned, very close to him. And how important was he to not only your running career, but to your life?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't know even how to like put it into words, but I just don't think I would be here. Honestly, I know everyone says this, but like I really wouldn't be here without him, because like I wasn't the most like talented, you know, recruit. I was just like, I was good, but like nothing out of this world. You know, I ran like 209. He got me all the way to 203. And even though, you know, do I want to run too flat? Of course. But 209 to 203 is not a failure. I might have failed at too flat, but like, it's not a failure in itself. You know, like I still came such a long way, and he helped me so much. Obviously doing that, just being a great coach. He's so knowledgeable about the 800. Like, that is his thing. Anything he says, I'm like, yes, okay, I believe you. If you tell me I can run too flat, I will believe you. And, you know, if somebody else says that, maybe not, because I'm like, do you actually know what you're talking about? But he does. And, yeah, he also helped me a lot with, you know, not having to identify so much with, like, the sport. Like, kind of giving me permission to, like, you know, you can do, like, other things, right? Like, find a hobby, like, do something. And I was so depressed after regionals, like for a hot second this year, because I'm like, oh my gosh, screw nationals. Like, of course I wanted to go, but what's really like messing me up is like, oh my gosh, are you not going to be my coach anymore? Like, I'm so sad. And, you know, that just got me so emotional. But he was like, Aziza, trust me, like he just said like, I don't know, things that he's never said before, because he's not like, I don't know. It's not like we talk about like, oh my gosh, like you're the best coach. We don't talk about that every day. Like, most of it is like, he gets on my nerves. Like, I'm sassy, all this stuff. So like we go back and forth, but yeah, he's just helped me with so much, just changing my perspective on, you know, what success is. It's not always getting, you know, accomplishing the goal itself, but I don't know. And emphasizing like the family aspect of our team. Like everything we did was together as a team. He always would say like, okay, enjoy this. Like this is the stuff you guys are going to miss. Just like the little things. And this season, especially, one of the big things was "This is water," like that quote. And to just like explain that briefly, he would always like tell us a story about like how there's two young fish kind of swimming along, and then an older fish swimming past them, and the older fish goes, "Hey, how's the water over there?" And then the two other fish just kept swimming by, and they were so confused. And then later, one of the younger fish goes, "What the hell is water?" Because, you know, that's all they've ever known. They don't even realize what they're in right now. So it's kind of like taking these things for granted. So, yeah, I think that's another big lesson that I was able to take away from him. But luckily, my sadness didn't last too long because he's still coaching me currently for this summer. So, like, I still get to see him a lot. And, yeah, so he still gets a couple more weeks with me. So I'm sure I'll go through all of this again when it's time for me to move on. But for now, I'm okay.
Yeah, that's great. And it kind of sounds like he's kind of an extension of a Krebs from high school. So kind of nice to be able to carry that through, have such a good relationship with your coach for so long. But, of course, you loved Ohio State. You loved your coach. Was there any moment that you spent at college that you considered maybe you would exhaust the rest of your eligibility elsewhere?
Yeah, the only time I really... Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second. Somebody's knocking on my door. What? Yeah. After the COVID situation, a lot of things were super uncertain in the NCAA in general, not just with me. But because when I signed my NLI, it was for 4 years because that's what we had anticipated. So my scholarship and all that, that was secure for 4 years. Now that our season was canceled and that we got like a whole year back, essentially, I wanted to use all my eligibility. So I knew I wanted to, you know, stay in the NCAA for 5 years because I lost a whole season. And with my scholarship being up in the air, I just thought like, well, I'm not going to go here for free. Like, I'm too good for this. Like, I could get money basically anywhere I wanted to go. So I wasn't going to just stick around Ohio State for, you know, no money, basically. So I was like, okay, well, let me just enter the transfer portal. And at this point, too, like, some of my, like, my favorite training partners, too, like I had mentioned, they were on their way out. So I'm like, I mean, my like best friends are not even going to be here. I'm not going to be on any money potentially. So let me just go explore options. So I entered the transfer portal, and I got like emails basically right away. Some of the schools that had reached out were UNC. They had just gotten their coach used to be at Stanford, Coach Milt, but yeah, they also have like a speed-based 800 and a strength-based 800 group, so he wouldn't have been my coach regardless. But anyway, they reached out. Florida reached out. Wake Forest reached out. And the one that I was probably the most interested in was USC. And I talked to Coach Debris Harris, and he actually knows Katie really well. But when we were talking, I just liked everything he kind of said. He reminded me a lot of Katie. And again, like, I love Katie, so... You know, I definitely wasn't leaving because of him. So ideally, I would find somebody kind of similar, but really that doesn't exist because, you know, he's a unique person if you've ever met him. But yeah, I was talking with him, and you know, USC. I visited their campus my freshman year because we had a meet there. It was the nicest campus I've ever been to in my life. Like, it's beautiful there. The weather's obviously way better than Ohio. And yeah, I was super interested, but it turns out that the NCAA came out with like, I don't know, some announcement that like if you meet certain criteria, you can stay on your scholarship. So I just ended up staying at Ohio State, and you know, it was fine. It worked out.
Yeah, it did seem to work out for you. Obviously, you got to stay closer to home, stay with Coach KD. But as we now transition to that next phase of your life, and we talked about this briefly the other day, actually, you have a lot of exciting goals. The one that stuck out to me the most was your 159.5 goal, and that's actually the Olympic qualifying time for the Puerto Rico, their federation in track and field. So can you tell me a little bit about that and what goes into this process for qualifying for the 2024 Olympics?
Yeah, so that has been like my childhood dream, and I never thought that it would be anything realistic. But now I'm thinking, okay, this seems way more realistic. And 159.5, that's the Olympic standard and the World Championship standard. So that's really the standard for all countries, including the U.S. But, for the U.S., obviously you have so many women that can run that. So you still have to have a trials to select your top 3. But for Puerto Rico, there's not more than 3 women that can do that. So as long as I can run that standard one good time, I'll be in. That's my goal. I guess for anyone listening that doesn't know, I'm half Puerto Rican, so I do have that option. My dad's Egyptian, and I also have that option because he was born in Egypt, but I'd much rather go for Puerto Rico because they're way more established, way more organized. My Spanish is a lot better than my Arabic. So I think it's just better. But so that's currently what I'm trying to do. I'm still racing this summer. I don't think I'm quite there yet this year, but I think if I were to kind of cash out on my max potential this summer, I could run 201, and that's really kind of my goal. So I got a couple more races left to try and do that. But, regardless, it's great to, just build on this for next year and the year after so I can, keep trying it. But that's a quick time. So there's no messing around with coming through in 60, 61 anymore. It's a new game. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's very exciting. It was very cool to see you when you came down to Atlanta the other week running the American Track League meet hosted at Marietta. It was very cool to catch up with you and really enjoyed our pizza dinner. That was great. I'm going to go there again for sure.
Yeah, it was good.
But other than that, thank you for coming on and sharing your story from Ohio State and now your adventures to go to the Olympic Games. It's very exciting, and I wish you the best.
Thanks, Gav. It was great to catch up.
Yeah, and thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you all next time outside the Oval.